My best friends wanted my house for $1. I said no, and everything changed. I never thought I would be the kind of guy to come on Reddit and spill my guts to strangers, but here we are. I don't know if I'm looking for validation, advice, or just a place to put down my thoughts, but my head is spinning. Maybe some of you can give me a reality check, because I honestly don't know if I'm the one being unreasonable here or if my so-called friends have completely lost their minds. For context, I'm a 30-year-old guy. I work in IT, not glamorous, not terrible either. I wouldn't say I'm rolling in money, but I've always been smart with my finances. While a lot of people my age were out traveling every summer, upgrading their cars, and spending every weekend at bars, I was quietly saving. I didn't mind being the boring one of the group. I always told myself that if I worked hard in my 20s, I'd have some kind of stability by the time I hit 30. That plan more or less worked. A few years back, I bought a modest house just outside the city. Nothing fancy, not a mansion or anything, but it was mine. 3 bedrooms, a little backyard, a garage. The kind of place where you can actually breathe, where you can hear birds in the morning instead of car horns. I poured myself into that place, spent countless weekends fixing it up, painting walls, learning how to do basic plumbing and electrical work from YouTube, even landscaping the backyard. I wanted to make it more than just a house. I wanted it to be a home. I don't come from money. My parents are good people, but they've struggled financially all their lives. They rent a small apartment and probably always will. So for me, owning this house wasn't just about having a roof over my head. It was about breaking a cycle, proving to myself that I could build something stable. It was security. It was pride. Honestly, it was the one big achievement of my 20s that I could point to and say, I did that. Now, let me introduce the other players in this little drama, my friends. We've known each other since high school. There's Alex, the loud one, always joking, always the life of the party. There's Mark, the responsible one, though he tends to spend money like water. Then there's Brian, who I'd call the glue of the group, laid back, chill, always the mediator when things get heated. We've been through everything together. Late night gaming marathons, drunken camping trips, heartbreaks, crappy jobs, you name it. For the longest time, I thought of them as brothers more than friends. But here's the thing. While I was squirreling away money, working overtime, and fixing up my place, they were living more in the moment, which is fine. Everyone makes their own choices. Alex still rents a small apartment with 2 roommates. Mark's bounced around different rentals, never staying in one place long. Brian lives with his girlfriend in a 1-bedroom, and I know they're struggling with rent because prices keep climbing. The running joke in the group was always, at least we know where to crash if we're ever homeless, your place. I used to laugh at that, thinking it was harmless. I didn't mind them hanging out at my place either. I liked being the host, the guy with the space for barbecues and game nights. It made me feel proud to share what I'd built with them. But lately, the tone has shifted. The jokes have become not so jokey. There's been this undercurrent of envy, little digs here and there. Comments like, must be nice not to throw half your paycheck into rent every month. Some people just get lucky, I guess. If you were a real friend, you'd let us stay here rent-free. I usually brush it off, thinking they didn't mean it. But there's only so many times you can laugh at the same joke before you realize it isn't really a joke. And then came the night that started this whole mess. We were sitting in my living room, beers in hand, the usual weekend hangout. Someone, honestly, I think it was Alex, looked around the room and said with a grin, you should just sell us this house for $1. Split it between the 3 of us. We'd finally have a place to call our own. And hey, you could always find another one. Everyone laughed. I did too at first, but then I noticed he wasn't really laughing. Neither were the others. They were serious, dead serious. And that's when everything changed. If I'm being honest, the whole thing shook me because our friendship was always the one stable, reliable thing in my life. I could lose jobs, deal with family drama, or go through breakups, but I always had my guys. That bond felt unbreakable. We met back in high school, for awkward kids who didn't quite fit in anywhere else. Alex was the class clown, the guy who'd stand on a desk just to make people laugh, even if it got him detention. He had this confidence I envied, like nothing embarrassed him. Mark was the ambitious one, always talking about how he'd be a millionaire before 30. He'd carry around business books while the rest of us played Halo. Then there was Brian, the chill one. He was the guy you could call at 2 a.m. if your car broke down or if you just needed someone to listen. And me, I was the quiet one, the nerd who actually did his homework, the one who teachers said had potential. We balanced each other out. I grounded them. They pulled me out of my shell. We weren't popular, but together we had our own little world. We'd spend summers gaming until sunrise, arguing about which superhero could beat the other, and pooling money for greasy pizza. As we grew up, Life started tugging us in different directions, but we always circled back to each other. Alex dropped out of college but found work in construction. He never stayed in one job long, but he always had a story to tell and kept us laughing. Mark actually tried a dozen different business ventures, everything from selling supplements to crypto investing. He made some money here and there, but spent it just as fast. Brian found steady work as a mechanic and moved in with his girlfriend, though money was tight. And then there was me, slogging away in IT. I get teased for being the responsible one, the guy who'd rather save for retirement than buy a flashy car. But I didn't mind. We all had our roles, and that's what made the group work. There was this unspoken rule that no matter how different our lives became, we had each other's backs. If one of us needed help moving, the rest showed up with boxes and pizza. If one of us got dumped, the others brought beer and stupid jokes to make it better. That's why when I bought my house, it felt like a win for all of us. They celebrated with me, helped me paint the living room, even pitched in for a grill so we could have barbecues in the backyard. I never saw jealousy back then, just pride. They joke, "Look at Mr. Homeowner here." But it felt like affectionate ribbing, not resentment. My house became our hangout spot, the place where Friday nights turned into Saturday mornings, where we could watch the game, argue about fantasy football, or crash after too many beers. I liked being the host. I liked that my place was where memories were made. It made all the sacrifices worth it. The overtime hours, the nights I skipped going out just to save a little more, the endless weekends spent fixing broken pipes or sanding floors. Seeing my friends sprawled on my couch, arguing about nothing, felt like proof that I'd built something meaningful. But as time went on, cracks started to show. Alex would complain about how his rent kept going up and say things like, "Man, you don't know how good you've got it." Mark would shake his head at the price of houses and mutter, "We'll never be able to afford one. The system's rigged." Brian, usually the calm one, once said, half joking, "You should just let us move in. We'll make it worth your while." I always brush it off. Friends tease, right? Friends vent. I figured it was harmless. But somewhere along the line, the tone shifted. The jokes got sharper. Less funny, more pointed. They started making me feel like I had something I didn't deserve. Like I cheated the system somehow. Like I hadn't spent years working my ass off, saying no to nights out, denying myself vacations, all for the sake of building a future. I tried not to take it personally. I knew they were frustrated with their own situations, but a small part of me began to wonder if the friendship I thought was rock solid was maybe a little shakier than I believed. Still, I kept opening my doors to them. I wanted to believe we were stronger than envy. I wanted to believe they were happy for me, even if they struggled themselves. And then came that night in my living room. The night that took a stupid joke about buying my house for $1 and turned it into something else. Something real. Something that made me look at my friends, not as brothers, not as my chosen family, but as people who suddenly saw me not as one of them, but as someone who had something they wanted. That realization cut deeper than I expected. The night it all shifted started out like any other Friday. Brian had brought over a 12-pack. Alex ordered wings, and Mark showed up late as usual, complaining about traffic. We sat around my living room, the TV glowing with whatever game was on, the smell of fried food filling the air. It was comfortable, familiar, one of those nights where you don't realize how much you love it until it's gone. I remember leaning back on my couch, watching them argue about some ridiculous call the ref made. I felt good, proud even. This house, this moment, this life, I had built it, and I loved that I could share it with the people who mattered most to me. That's when Alex dropped the line that changed everything. He glanced around the room, beer in hand, and said, "Man, you should just sell us this place for $1. Seriously, split it between the three of us. We'd finally have a real home. No more landlords screwing us. No more rent hikes. Just stability." At first, I laughed. I thought everyone else would too. That's the kind of joke Alex always made, wild, over the top, but harmless. But this time was different. Mark didn't laugh. He leaned forward, his eyes serious, and said, "You know, it's not actually a bad idea. Think about it, we've been friends forever. You know the house is in good hands, and you could always get another place. With your salary and credit, it'd be easier for you than for us." I froze, the smile still on my face but starting to feel plastered there. "You can't be serious," I said, trying to keep it light. Brian, of all people, shrugged. "I mean, it does make some sense. You've already built equity in the place. You could start over somewhere else. Meanwhile, we'd finally get a chance at something we'd never be able to afford otherwise." The room went quiet, except for the hum of the TV. My stomach twisted. Were they actually discussing this? "Guys," I said, laughing nervously, I worked my ass off for this place. Years of saving, sacrificing. I'm not just going to sell it for $1. Alex waved a hand like I was being dramatic. We're not saying it literally has to be $1, man. We just mean, hook us up. Give us a deal. You don't need to make a profit off us, we're your friends. Mark chimed in, his voice sharper. Yeah. What's the point of hoarding it? It's not like you have a wife or kids to pass it on to. It's just you, living here by yourself. Wouldn't it mean more if it helped your friends build a future? That stung more than I care to admit. The fact that I don't have a family yet has always been a quiet insecurity of mine. To have Mark throw it in my face like that, it felt less like a suggestion and more like an attack. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. I didn't hoard anything. I worked, I saved. I skipped out on trips and new cars and nights out because I wanted this. This house isn't just some object. It's my home. My security. Brian, usually the peacekeeper side. We get that, man. We do. But think about it, we've been like brothers since we were teenagers. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could finally all live in the same place again? Like old times, but better. You'd never be alone, and we'd all share the responsibilities. That part made me pause. For a split second, I imagined it. The four of us under one roof again, laughing until sunrise, filling the house with life and noise. But the fantasy dissolved quickly. I knew how messy it would be. Bills, maintenance, responsibilities, they'd all fall on me. Because that's how it had always been. I was the planner, the saver, the responsible one. The others were not. I don't think that's a good idea, I said finally, my voice firmer. The mood shifted. Alex rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath. Mark leaned back, shaking his head. Brian looked disappointed, like a parent watching a kid refuse to share his toys. For the rest of the night, the energy was off. The laughter felt forced, the jokes a little too sharp. When they finally left, I sat alone in the quiet, staring at the walls I painted with my own hands. It should have felt like home, but suddenly, it felt like a target. Because for the first time, I realized my friends didn't just see my house as my house. They saw it as something they deserved, something I owed them, and that scared the hell out of me. After that night, things didn't just go back to normal. I kept waiting for the whole "sell us your house for $1" thing to fade into a forgotten joke. But it didn't. If anything, it got worse. The next week, we met up at Brian's place for a game night. It should have been fun, pizza, controllers in hand, trash talk over Call of Duty, but the vibe was off from the start. Alex made a crack as soon as I walked in. Oh look, it's Mr. Monopoly himself, landlord of his own empire. Everyone laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh that warms you up. It was the kind that makes your stomach sink. Later, when Brian's girlfriend mentioned how their rent had gone up again, Mark turned to me and said, "See, this is why it makes sense for you to cut us a deal. You've got stability. We don't. You could actually help your friends out instead of hoarding it all for yourself." I didn't know what to say. Hoarding, like I was some dragon sitting on a pile of gold, instead of a guy paying his mortgage and fixing leaky pipes. I tried to change the subject, but the comments kept coming. Over the next few weeks, every hangout seemed to circle back to my house. "Alex, man, imagine how awesome it would be if this place was ours. Backyard barbecues every weekend. No more dealing with landlords. Mark, you wouldn't even have to give it away for free. We'd scrape together something. Just, friend prizes. Brian, it's not like you'd really lose. You just start fresh somewhere else. You could even buy a bigger place. You deserve it." At first, I laughed it off. Then I started defending myself, explaining how much work and sacrifice went into the house. But the more I pushed back, the more they dug in. Like my refusal was proof that I didn't care about them. The guilt trips began. One night, after too many beers, Alex leaned across the table and said, "Dude, if you were really our friend, you'd want us to have a shot at something better. We're drowning out here. Meanwhile, you're sitting on the golden ticket." Mark piled on. "We're not asking you to give up everything. Just one house. You could buy another. We can't. Don't you get that?" And then Brian, the one I always counted on to be reasonable, looked me dead in the eye and said, "If the roles were reversed, I'd help you." That one hurt the most, because deep down, I knew he probably believed it. But I also knew Brian had never been in my shoes. He never spent years grinding at a job he didn't love, skipping vacations, patching drywall with his own hands because he couldn't afford to hire someone. He didn't know what it felt like to put every ounce of yourself into something and finally see it pay off. The more they pushed, the more alone I felt. It was like the foundation of our friendship was cracking under the weight of their resentment. I started noticing other things too. When they came over, they'd walk through the house like inspectors, commenting on everything. Nice hardwood floors, but that added some value. Or man, This kitchen reno must have cost a fortune. It didn't feel like admiration. It felt like they were tallying up what they thought I owed them. I found myself pulling back. Hosting them felt uncomfortable, like I was showing off instead of sharing. I stopped inviting them over as much, made excuses about being busy, but that only made them more bitter. One evening, Mark texted me out of the blue. "So have you thought about our offer?" Our offer, like it was some kind of business deal. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. "There's nothing to think about. I'm not selling my house." He left me on read. The next time we all met up, the air was thick. No jokes, no easy banter, just tension. Finally, Alex broke the silence. "So that's it? You're just gonna hang on to it while we struggle? Some friend you are." I wanted to scream, to shake them and make them understand. But all I managed was, "I worked hard for this. I'm not giving it up." End of story. Nobody argued after that, but the look on their faces said it all. Disappointment, resentment, maybe even hatred. Walking home that night, I realized something I never wanted to admit. My friends didn't just want my company anymore. They wanted what I had. And if I didn't give it to them, they'd never look at me the same way again. The breaking point came on a Saturday night a few weeks later. I'd been avoiding hosting, but Brian insisted we all meet at my place. He said he missed the old times, that it would just be a chill hangout. Nothing serious. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When they arrived, it felt almost normal again. We ordered pizza, cracked open beers, and played a few rounds of FIFA for a couple of hours. I let myself believe maybe things had blown over, that maybe they'd realized how unfair they were being. But as the night wore on, the conversation inevitably turned back to the house. Alex was the first to bring it up. He walked through the living room, beer in hand, and said, "Man, every time I come here, I just think about how perfect this place would be for all of us. It's like it was meant to be ours." Mark chimed in from the couch. "Yeah. And instead it's just sitting here with one guy rattling around inside. It's kind of a waste if you think about it." I set down my controller, my pulse quickening. "It's not a waste. It's my home." Brian, who had been quiet most of the night, finally spoke. "We've been talking, and we're serious about this, man. You could change our lives. We're not asking for charity. We'll pay something, but we need you to meet us halfway." The way he said it, "we've been talking," hit me like a punch. They'd been discussing this behind my back, planning, maybe even scheming. I tried to keep my voice calm. "I already told you, I'm not selling my house. Not for $1, not for a discount, not at all." The room went tense. Alex's smile dropped. Mark leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "So that's it?" Mark snapped. "You'd rather watch us struggle for the rest of our lives while you sit comfortable? You think you're better than us now?" "No," I shot back. "I don't think I'm better. I just worked for this. I sacrificed for this. You think it just fell into my lap? Do you even know how many nights I skipped going out so I could save? How many weekends I spent patching walls and fixing leaks instead of partying? This isn't some gift I stumbled into. I earned it." Alex slammed his beer down on the table. "You call us brothers, but when it comes down to it, you choose money over friendship. Some brother you are." I stood up, anger boiling over. "You're not asking me to be a friend. You're asking me to give up the one thing I've worked my whole life for. That's not friendship, that's exploitation." For a moment, nobody spoke. The only sound was the hum of the fridge in the kitchen. Then Brian, the one I always thought would have my back, shook his head. "I never thought you'd be this selfish. I guess we were wrong about you." That one cut deeper than anything else they had said. Selfish. After everything I'd done to be there for them. After every late night call. Every favor. Every time I put their needs above mine, they called me selfish because I wouldn't hand over my home. I felt something snap inside me. "Get out," I said quietly. They all stared at me. "Get out." Alex muttered something under his breath but grabbed his jacket. Mark shot me a glare that could have burned holes through drywall. Brian didn't say a word, just walked out without looking at me. The door closed behind them, and suddenly the house was silent. Too silent. I sank onto the couch, my hands trembling. This place had always felt warm, full of memories and laughter. But now it felt empty, haunted by the echo of voices calling me selfish, greedy, unworthy. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the conversation over and over, wondering if I could have handled it differently. Should I have been gentler, more patient? Should I have offered some kind of compromise, like letting them stay over rent-free for a while? But every time I tried to imagine it, I came back to the same truth. Nothing would ever be enough. If I gave them an inch, they'd take a mile. If I let them stay, they'd want ownership. If I gave them a discount, they'd push for more. This wasn't about the house anymore. It was about entitlement. about them thinking my hard work meant nothing if it didn't benefit them. The next day, my phone lit up with messages. Alex, you'll regret this. Friends don't last forever, but houses don't keep you warm at night. Mark, hope you enjoy being alone in your castle. Don't bother calling us when you need help. Brian, I'm disappointed, man. I thought you were different. Guess I was wrong. I stared at the screen, a lump in my throat. Part of me wanted to fire back, to defend myself, to remind them of everything I'd done for them. But another part of me knew it was pointless. The friendship I thought was uncheckable had crumbled, and there was no going back. For the first time in my life, my house felt less like a home and more like a fortress. A place where I was safe from the outside world, but utterly, completely alone. The week after the fallout was one of the loneliest of my life. For years, my phone had been buzzing almost daily with group chats, memes, invites, or just random late-night "you up" text from the guys. Now, it was dead silent. The quiet felt heavy, oppressive, like a reminder of everything I had just lost. I didn't realize how much of my routine revolved around them until they weren't there anymore. No Saturday soccer, no quick beers after work, no gaming marathons that stretched until dawn. Even small things like not getting tagged in their posts stung more than I expected. It was like being erased from my own life. At first, I wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I had clung too tightly to the house, to the idea of ownership when friendship should have come first. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized friendship isn't supposed to be conditional. Real friends don't ask you to give up the biggest thing you've ever worked for. Real friends don't guilt you into signing away your future just so they can feel comfortable. Real friends certainly don't threaten to cut you off because you said no. And yet, knowing that didn't erase the ache. I spent hours walking around the house, staring at the walls I'd painted, the shelves I'd built, the little imperfections that told the story of my labor. I had poured myself into this place, and it had become my dream realized. But now those same walls whispered with echoes of betrayal. One night, I sat on the porch with a beer, staring at the street lamp glow spilling across the pavement. I thought about the kid I used to be, the one who'd sit in dingy apartments with the guys, eating cheap noodles and promising that one day we'd all make it out together. Back then, we swore nothing would break us apart. But somewhere along the line, the definition of together changed. For me, it meant encouraging each other, celebrating milestones, helping when help was truly needed. For them, it seemed to mean dragging me down to their level, so none of us would rise above the others. That realization hurt more than their words. A few days later, I bumped into Brian at the grocery store. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept well. For a moment, I thought maybe this was the chance to clear the air. But when our eyes met, his face hardened. He walked past me without a word. That was the final nail in the coffin. I went home and sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen. My hands hovered over the keyboard as I debated what to do. Then I remembered something I'd seen countless times before, people pouring their hearts out on Reddit, seeking perspective from strangers. It always seemed a little desperate, but now I understood the appeal. I needed to get this out. I needed to know if I was crazy, if I had made the wrong call, if maybe I was the selfish one. So I started typing. I wrote about my life, about the house, about the friendships that had once felt uncheckable. I described the night they confronted me, the words they threw like knives, the silence that followed. I admitted my doubts, my guilt, my loneliness. And finally, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me ever since. Am I wrong for choosing my home over my friends? Am I really the selfish one here? Or were they asking for something no real friend ever should? By the time I hit post, it was past midnight. I half expected to wake up to ridicule, to strangers confirming my worst fears. Instead, when I opened my laptop the next morning, the post had blown up. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments. The responses were overwhelming. Dude, your friends were never friends. They were freeloaders waiting for their chance. You're not selfish. You set a boundary. Good on you. They wanted to exploit you. Plain and simple. Cut them off and don't look back. As someone who lost a house in a divorce, trust me, never give up your home for anyone who doesn't value it like you do. Reading those words was like breathing again after being underwater. Strangers from around the world, people who didn't know me, didn't owe me anything, were telling me what I needed to hear. That I wasn't the villain of my own story. Some even shared similar experiences. Stories of friends or family who tried to take advantage of them. A few admitted they'd once been the Mark or Alex in their group, and that they regretted it. It didn't erase the pain, but it gave me clarity. My house wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of my work, my sacrifice, my growth. Giving it up would have meant giving up myself. If my friends couldn't understand that, maybe they were never really my friends at all. That night, I closed the group chat for good. I deleted their numbers, unfollowed them on social media, and let the silence settle not as a punishment, but as a release. For the first time since this all started, the house felt warm again. Not because it was filled with laughter or noise, but because it was filled with something even more important, peace. And maybe, just maybe, someday I'll fill it with new memories, new friends who understand boundaries, a partner who sees the value in what I've built, maybe even a family of my own. But for now, it's mine. My safe place. My home. And I finally believe that's okay.